right. So we're taking a deep dive today.
Okay.
Into the ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
And we're going to go beyond just like what to eat, all that kind of basic stuff, and really get into the science of it.
Cool.
And you sent over some excerpts from Understanding Ketogenic Diet Science. So I can tell you're pretty serious about understanding how this whole thing works, right?
Yeah, especially the muscle preservation aspect. I think that's where it gets really... Yeah.
That's what I think makes it super fascinating, is that it really challenges, kind of like, what we think we know about weight loss.
It challenges conventional wisdom about weight loss by shifting your body's entire energy system.
Exactly.
Think about it. Instead of relying on carbs for fuel, your body becomes a fat-burning machine, even at rest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how does that actually work?
Right.
I mean, I get that, it's like high fat, low carb, but like what is actually happening in our bodies to make that switch?
So the key is understanding a metabolic state called ketosis.
Okay.
I've heard that word.
And it all starts with insulin.
Okay.
Normally, when you eat carbs, your body releases insulin to process that glucose and use it for energy.
Okay.
But on a keto diet, you drastically reduce those carbs.
Okay, so then less insulin is needed.
Exactly.
Okay.
With less glucose to manage, insulin levels plummet.
Oh, okay.
And that triggers the release of another hormone called glucagon.
Glucagon.
Think of it as the opposite of insulin.
Gotcha.
Insulin stores energy, glucagon releases it.
Gotcha. So glucagon is basically tapping into our glycogen reserves that we've built up, stored glucose.
Yeah, in the liver, in the muscles.
Exactly.
But what happens when those reserves run low? That's when the real magic happens.
You got it.
Yeah.
As glycogen levels decrease, your body kicks off a process called beta oxidation.
Beta oxidation.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Your body starts breaking down fatty acids to use as fuel.
Oh, wow.
It's like switching from burning wood to burning coal.
Okay.
A totally different energy source.
Oh, wow. So what's the result of all that fat burning?
Ketones.
Ketones.
The liver starts churning out ketones, which can travel through the bloodstream to power your muscles and even your brain.
Okay.
What's fascinating here is that not all fatty acids are used in this process.
Okay.
Some of them combine to form ketone bodies, which your mitochondria can use directly for energy.
Oh, so that's where our mitochondria come in.
Remember those from biology class?
Yeah, the powerhouses of the cell.
The powerhouses of the cell?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So instead of relying on glucose from carbs, they're now running on...
They're running on ketones.
Ketones. Yeah. And the more ketones, the more fat you burn.
Exactly. It's a really efficient system.
Wow. So this is the key for me, is this muscle preservation aspect.
It's so important on keto. The brain actually prefers ketones over glucose.
Wow. So it's not just like a backup fuel.
The brain's preferred source.
Wow. Okay.
You got it.
So that's why we're less likely to experience that muscle breakdown, the catabolism.
You got it.
When we're trying to lose weight.
Right.
Normally...
Our body needs glucose. Yeah. And it's not getting enough from food.
Right.
It starts breaking down muscle tissue for fuel.
Right, because it can convert the protein
into glucose.
Exactly.
Through gluconeogenesis.
Precisely.
Right.
But on keto, since the brain is happily using ketones, your body doesn't need to break down muscle for fuel.
Wow, the muscles get a free pass.
It's like your muscles are getting a free pass.
They're spared.
They're spared because the brain has found a better energy source.
The brain's like, I got a better source over here. I don't need to break down the protein. So ketosis
That's amazing.
is protecting the muscles while burning fat.
Yes.
That's like a win-win.
It's a win-win.
For anyone who wants to be lean and strong.
To get lean and strong.
But how much protein
It's a great question.
do you actually need on keto
and
to make sure that...
We'll explore in more detail in our next segment.
Butt muscle. Okay, great. Okay, so we know our brains love those ketones.
Right.
And that means our muscles don't have to be sacrificed.
Exactly.
For energy when we're on keto.
Yeah.
But if we're actually like trying to build muscle,
yeah,
what's the protein strategy?
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
Even though your body is primarily fueled by fat on keto, protein still plays a vital role.
Okay.
Think of it like this.
Yeah.
Ketones are the fuel for the engine.
Okay.
But protein is the building material for the car itself.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So even though the body isn't breaking down muscle for fuel like we talked about, we still need to give it enough protein to repair and build, right?
Exactly.
The new tissue.
And the amount you need can vary quite a bit, depending on your activity level.
Right.
Individual metabolism, and those muscle building goals you mentioned. It's definitely not one size fits all.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like any diet, you have to kind of tailor it. Right.
Exactly.
But how do you balance getting enough protein for muscle growth with, staying in that fat-burning state of ketosis?
This is where working with a knowledgeable healthcare professional or a registered dietitian can be really helpful. They can help you figure out the right protein intake for your individual situation. And design a keto meal plan that supports both your muscle building goals and your overall health.
Yeah, because, most of us aren't,
exactly
nutrition experts.
Yeah.
We need some guidance, right?
We do.
But speaking of goals,
you
mentioned weight loss earlier. We're talking about, keto for muscle building. But obviously it's super popular for weight loss too.
It is.
So how does that tie into the science?
Well, remember how we talked about the body switching over to burning fat for fuel during ketosis?
Yeah.
That sustained fat burning is a major driver of weight loss, especially for people who haven't had success with traditional calorie restriction diets.
So it's not just about eating less. It's about changing.
It's about changing the way your body uses energy.
Uses energy.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So by limiting carbs.
By limiting carbs and encouraging your body to burn fat.
Right.
The keto diet can create a calorie deficit without making you feel constantly hungry.
Wow. Okay, so that's a huge advantage.
That's one reason it's been so successful.
For a lot of people.
For many people.
But I think we got to talk about the elephant in the room here.
Sure.
Sustainability.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people find it tough.
Yeah.
To maintain a strict diet long term.
Right.
Cutting out so many carbs.
It's not easy. It can be pretty restrictive.
It can be really tough.
Especially when everyone else is enjoying
pizza and pop.
When you're at a party or something and everyone's eating all the good stuff.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It is.
So is it as simple as just swapping bread for bacon?
Not quite.
Okay.
It requires a real commitment and careful planning.
Yeah.
Some people thrive on that structure and find it motivating.
Right.
While others feel too restricted.
Yeah, so it really
comes down to personal preference.
Comes down to the individual.
And figuring out what works for you long term.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Finding that balance, right?
Exactly.
Healthy and sustainable.
Yeah.
One thing that I worry about, though, is nutrient deficiencies.
Sure.
If you're cutting out so many fruits and veggies, aren't you going to miss out on some important stuff?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
That's why it's so crucial to be mindful
of your nutrient intake on keto.
Right.
You have to be very deliberate about choosing nutrient-dense foods within the allowed options.
So it's not just about hitting your macros, the fat, the protein, the carbs.
It's not just about the macros.
You got to pay attention.
You got to pay attention to the micros, too.
Those micronutrients.
Absolutely. You've got to prioritize those low-carb veggies.
Okay.
Leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, avocado.
Okay, so there are
things that pack a nutritional punch.
Some good options there.
Right.
Okay.
And in some cases, supplementation might be necessary to fill in any gaps.
Okay, and that's where
exactly.
working with a professional.
This is where working with a healthcare professional or a registered dietitian becomes even more important, right? They can help you navigate those potential pitfalls and create a balanced meal plan.
Yeah, because they know more than...
They have the expertise.
We do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've gone, really deep into this science of ketosis.
Explored the benefits, the drawbacks.
Absolutely.
And really kind of emphasize that personalized guidance aspect.
So important.
As we start to wrap up here, what's the most important takeaway you'd want our listeners to remember?
The key message is this. Knowledge is power.
Okay.
The more you understand about how the keto diet works, the better equipped you are to make informed decisions about your health.
Right.
Approach it with curiosity. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
And most importantly, listen to your body.
Listen to your body. Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
It's not about
blindly following a trend.
Blindly following any trend. Understanding the science and figuring out what works best for you.
Exactly. And hopefully this deep dive has given our listener
I think so.
the knowledge and the confidence to do just that.
Absolutely.
But before we get too carried away with all the possibilities, I think it's important to address some of the the downsides, right?
Sure.
And the misconceptions about the keto diet.
Yeah.
Because let's be real.
Right.
No diet is perfect.
No diet is perfect.
There's always trade-offs.
You're right. You need to look at both sides of the coin.
Yeah, let's get into that. All right, so I think we've done a pretty good job covering, the science of keto, the good, the bad.
Right.
And that it's really about that personalized approach.
Finding what works for you.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think there's always those cautionary tales.
Sure.
Those misconceptions floating around out there about any diet, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's unpack those a little bit.
It's always good to approach things with a balanced perspective.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
One of the biggest criticisms I hear about keto is that it's just a fad diet.
Right.
Like here today, gone tomorrow.
Right.
How do we separate the hype from the real science?
Well, the surge in keto's popularity might make it seem trendy.
Yeah.
But its principles have been around for a long time.
Cool.
In fact, it has a solid history in the medical field.
You're talking about the ketogenic diet for epilepsy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doctors have been using keto to manage epilepsy for decades.
Wow. Okay.
Especially in cases where medications aren't effective.
So it's not just some new thing
and clinical application.
To really support the scientific basis of this approach.
Okay. So
it's not just some fleeting weight loss trend.
But that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about the argument that it's just too restrictive?
You're cutting out entire food groups.
Yeah.
Like fruit, a lot of vegetables.
A significant change in eating habits.
Yeah. How do people?
Yeah. Social situations, dining out.
Yeah, exactly.
Even just your regular grocery shopping routine.
Yeah.
Can definitely be challenging.
So it's not just
it's not just about swapping bread for bacon.
Okay. All right.
No.
So it requires
a real commitment and careful planning.
Okay.
Some people thrive on that structure and find it motivating.
Okay.
While others feel too restricted.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to personal preference and figuring out what works for you long term.
It all comes back to what we talked about earlier, finding that balance.
Finding that balance, yeah.
Healthy and sustainable.
Healthy and sustainable.
Another thing that worries me, though, is the nutrient deficiencies.
Sure.
If you're cutting out all these fruits and veggies,
right,
aren't you missing out?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
It's why it's so crucial to be mindful of your nutrient intake on keto.
Okay.
You have to be very deliberate about choosing nutrient-dense foods within the allowed options.
It's not just hitting your macros.
It's not just about the macros.
You got to pay attention to.
You got to pay attention to those micronutrients.
Those micronutrients.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've got to prioritize those low-carb veggies.
Right.
Leafy greens.
Like what? Broccoli? Yeah, like broccoli, cauliflower.
Avocado. Things that pack a nutritional punch.
Yeah. Okay, so you do have some good options there.
You do.
Okay. But in some cases, you might need to supplement.
And in some cases, supplementation might be necessary to fill in any gaps.
And this is where working with, professional really comes in?
This is where working with a healthcare professional or a registered dietitian becomes even more important.
Yeah, they can help you.
Right. They can help you navigate those potential pitfalls.
Navigate those pitfalls.
And create a balanced meal plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Really appreciate you breaking down all the science for us.
Of course, it's been a pleasure being here.
So for our listeners out there, what would you say is the most important takeaway?
I think the key message is this. Knowledge is power.
Okay.
The more you understand about how the keto diet works, the better equipped you are to make informed decisions about your health.
Okay.
Approach it with curiosity. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
And most importantly, listen to your body.
Listen to your body.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
That's the best advice I can give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not about blindly following a trend.
It's not about blindly following any trend.
It's about making an informed decision.
It's about understanding the science and figuring out what works best for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully this deep dive has given everyone out there,
I hope so,
the knowledge and the confidence to do just that.
Absolutely.
So thanks for tuning in to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me.